This is the cluster that was created, the AWS Redshift cluster, and we are going to resize this particular cluster. Let me click on this cluster, and you already know what this screen is, right? There are multiple options that you can see, and on the top we have four buttons. One is actions, the other one is edit, and then there's something called partner integration, adding partner integration, and then query data. We'll talk about query data later on. Let's take a look at the other options that we have. The first one is add partner integration. So if you click on this, so there are multiple AWS partners which can be integrated with Redshift to ingest data. The first one that it lists is Data Coral, which says it is secure no code data ingestion from production databases into cloud warehouses. It also gives you out of the box data quality checks to drive accurate analytics. Meaning that if you want to move data from your on-premise data warehousing systems or data warehousing systems which you have created on EC2, you can move that into Redshift. Then you have something called ETL Leap, which is basically a tool which can be used to run ETL jobs. And there are a lot of other things also. One of the most used is Informatica. Informatica has a cloud data integration platform which can be used to load data into Amazon Redshift without doing any coding. Then we have SnapLogic, Stitch, ThoughtSpot, Upsolver. Upsolver can also be used to ingest data into Redshift, Matillion, cSense, etc. Then of course we have AWS services like Amazon Airflow. Airflow can be used to ingest data from third-party SaaS softwares directly into Redshift. So we'll cancel this particular option. So this is the partner integration. Then we have this edit option. So using this edit option, what you can do is that you can rename the cluster and you can change the snapshot or backup configuration. We'll talk about rename shortly. So this is again, this is the cluster identifier. You can change it. You can also change the backup configurations. Let's say for automated snapshot, we want currently we have 0 retention period. So using this backup option, we can change the configuration of backup. For example, we have not set automated snapshot yet because the automated snapshot retention period is 0, and you can change it to, let's say, 1 to anything till 35. We can also change the manual retention period from 1 days or 7 days or any value that we choose. Now there are options of network security, maintenance, and database configurations. Now, one thing is that you cannot change anything in the networking part, meaning that as you have launched the Redshift cluster in the VPC, we cannot change the VPC or the subnet group or the availability zone. But if you want to make some changes, let's say I want to change the security group, etc., we can edit the network and security settings on the cluster details properties tab. We can do that from that particular screen. The same is true for maintenance and database configurations. So from this particular console, we can only change or rename the cluster and we can change the backup configuration. I'll not make any changes as of now. And the final button is actions. So here we have a lot of options. The first one is resize, which we'll do right now. We can reboot the cluster. Why would you want to reboot the cluster? So let's say there are some parameters that you have changed and that parameter change needs the database server or Redshift to be restarted. So in that case, you can reboot the server. We can pause the cluster. So if you use pause, will not be charged with compute cost, but the storage cost has to be given. Then we can delete the cluster and modify publicly accessible setting. Currently, our Redshift cluster is not accessible to public. We can change that. Typically, you should not do that unless you are doing it for some demo or testing, etc. We can create custom domain names, meaning that Redshift endpoint that we will be using to connect to Redshift cluster from application programs, we can change that. We have options of restoring table. We'll talk about restoring tables, snapshot and restore shortly. Similar is the case like we can create snapshot, we can configure cross region snapshot, we can manage IAM roles. So the IAM role that I have associated with this particular cluster, I can change that. I can also change the admin user password. Then we can update the cluster version or roll back a cluster version. Currently, we do not have this option enabled because we have launched the Redshift cluster with the latest version. If needed, we can actually upgrade it. And after the upgrade, if we want, we can roll back also. And then we can manage usage limit. So these are the options that we have in this actions button. So what do we want to do? We want to resize the cluster. So if you remember what we have done, we have created this Redshift cluster with node type dc2.large and with 2 nodes, and we want to, let's say, change it to 4 nodes, or you can change the node type also. So if I click on actions and click on resize, I'll not be able to do it immediately because we have not done something which is called snapshot. So to do an elastic resize, we need a cluster snapshot first. Without having a snapshot, we cannot do elastic resize. The snapshot can be either automated snapshot or manual snapshot. While creating the cluster, we mentioned automated snapshot retention period to be 0. That's why no automated snapshot was created. So far, we have not created any manual snapshot also. Once we take the snapshot, we'll be able to do the elastic resize. So let me scroll down. What you can do, you can resize the cluster and only change the nodes. So if you see, we cannot change node types from DC2 to RA3 using elastic resize, but we can only change the node count. So we cannot change the node type from DC2 to RA3 using elastic resize for a DC2 node type, but you can change the node count. Also, there's a limitation of node count because we cannot increase it to more than 4. Why is it so? Because if you remember, we had mentioned that for DC2 nodes, the growth limit is only 2x, not more than that. And that's why we cannot increase the node count from more than 4. So if I click on resize cluster, it will be done. So I'll not do it. So if you select classic resize and scroll down, take a look at the new configuration. So here we can change the node type also. So we can change it from DC2 to RA3, also DS2, which is dense storage. And as I said, it will be deprecated. So we'll not use dense storage at all. So you can change it from DC2 to RA3 using classic resize of a DC2 node. And if we want, we can also change the number of nodes from current 2 to 4. If I click on resize cluster, so it says that Redshift is modifying DE-AWS Redshift cluster, and the cluster would be modified and resized to 4 nodes after the modification is done. So it will take some time. I'll pause the video and come back when the modification is over. If you click on this cluster and go to the cluster, if you see, the status here is modifying and resizing. So click on this, and here you can check the status of modification also. So the data is currently not available because it is modifying behind the scenes and it is being resized. So you can check the status, what is the progress of the modification or what is the progress of the resize. I have already told you what is the process of resizing for both elastic and classic resize. In elastic resize, we have two modification types. One is in place resize, wherein we do not change the node type, and we have a resize wherein we can change the node type also with the node count. In classic resize, we can change the node count, and also we can convert DC2 nodes to RA3 nodes. Same is the case with elastic resize also, but elastic resize needs a snapshot. Now here in classic resize, I have already talked about the process, how it happens. So it will take some time for the modification. As I said, I'll pause the video and come back when it is done. So the modification or the resizing is done. As you can see, the status is available. The node type is dc2.large, but the number of node is 4. We have successfully resized the cluster. As you can see, the storage has also changed. It is 640 GB right now. Earlier it was 320 GB. This is how we resize a DC2 cluster. And as I told you earlier, you can resize RA3 cluster also. We used classic resize, But if you want to use elastic resize, you'll have to take a snapshot. We have not taken any snapshot as of yet, but once the snapshot is taken, the elastic resize would be available for you, and you can do elastic resize. You can change the node types and node counts. The same can be done in classic resize as well.